So we have Dr. Suchi Talati, an expert in geoengineering, which is what we're going to talk about today. Sounds like a really big and important thing.
Definitely.
And currently you are a science advisor in the U.S. Senate. When people think of geoengineering, there's sort of two areas of geoengineering, right?
So there's solar geoengineering,
yeah,
and there's carbon dioxide removal.
Okay, so tell me about solar geoengineering.
So essentially, they're technologies to just reflect more sunlight to help reduce the temperature of the planet.
Got it. I see. So the Earth is getting too warm
And
because of the greenhouse gas effect.
Right.
And the idea is that you're going to change the properties of the atmosphere to reflect more sunlight into space.
Right, and to counteract climate change impacts.
So what is an example of that?
So the most popular example of solar radiation management are injecting sulfur aerosols into the stratosphere. And so essentially these aerosols are thrown into the stratosphere and reflect sunlight, effectively cooling the planet almost immediately.
And has this ever been done?
Only naturally. So large volcanic eruptions can send those sulfur aerosols into the stratosphere, but we've never done it deliberatively.
It seems like the kind of thing where if you accidentally pump too much aerosols into the atmosphere and block sunlight from coming in, it could have catastrophic consequences.
Yeah. Because it's so cheap, and because we can do this right now, any country can throw any amount of these aerosols into the stratosphere and essentially control the global thermostat on their own. So you could use planes, you could use balloons, you can use cannons to throw up aerosols into the stratosphere. Even a private company could do this right now.
A private company could pump enough aerosols into the atmosphere to drop global temperatures?
Yep.
And of course, if you drop global temperatures too much, the plant matter will die,
right, and
animals will die, and then you'll be looking at mass extinction of species.
Who loves the sun? Who cares that it makes plants grow? Who cares what it does since you broke my heart? Who loves the wind? Who cares that it makes breezes? Who cares what it does since you broke my heart?
So, is there a governance body that is regulating the use of this type of geoengineering?
There's zero governance around geoengineering. There's no international governance body, there's no national governance body, there's not even a governance body at an institutional level to govern research.
So that's odd because, when it comes to some of the other, technologies that could potentially result in global catastrophic risk, such as the regulation of, nuclear weapons, the regulation of biological weapons, you do have international treaties that people have signed, that governments have signed onto, that regulates the use of these dangerous weapons. But it sounds like with geoengineering, you don't have anything similar.
This entire topic has just been extremely taboo, and people are just so averse to it that we can't even talk about governance.
Is the reason people scared about it is because they don't even want to contemplate the possibly beneficial use of the technology because they're afraid of what could go wrong?
Definitely, and I think they're also afraid of talking about it because it means that we'll have failed at any mitigation strategy. So they don't want to divert attention from reducing emissions. And so I think that's what they think the main danger is, that people will just assume that this solves climate change.
And therefore people will stop thinking about regulating carbon dioxide from a coal power plant.
Right, it's the moral hazard argument. Right. So this is all solar radiation management, but I want to talk a little bit about carbon dioxide removal.
Okay, so now there's another piece of geoengineering.
There's another half to it, and those technologies are called carbon dioxide removal technologies. And the UN in its mitigation scenarios and trying to figure out how we're going to reach our temperature goals, they have found that there's absolutely no way in reaching those goals without using carbon dioxide removal technologies. So these technologies are essentially ways to create net negative emissions. So it's the most popular technology is called direct air capture, which is essentially a machine that sucks carbon dioxide out of the ambient air and then stores it underground.
A machine that does this.
Yeah.
So it's a machine that does what trees do, but the idea is that it would be more efficient.
It would be more efficient, and it could be more large scale, and we could control it. So I mean, there are natural types of carbon dioxide removal, afforestation being one of those things. But the more technological side of it are things like direct air capture or something like ocean fertilization, which is extremely dangerous. But essentially, it's seeding the ocean with iron and to grow algae, which create a bigger carbon sink in the ocean.
I see. So you dump a bunch of iron in the ocean,
right?
And iron gives rise to algae growth, and the algae basically eats the carbon dioxide, and the CO2 basically becomes a part of the algae. So that's one way of sequestering it.
Right, and I mean that's extremely risky. And there was actually a story of a rogue geoengineer who did this off the coast of Canada.
A rogue geoengineer. That sounds really scary.
Yeah, and he did it, but there were no consequences, right? Because there are no governance structures around this.
So how can we get a framework to think about both the benefits? That was a big bump. To think about both the benefits and the risks of geoengineering. Do you want to take a minute to get your heart rate down?
No, I'm good. The most important thing will be making clear that this is not a conversation about when or how to deploy geoengineering. It's about just creating a governance infrastructure for research.
The idea being we're nowhere near close to actually deploying this technology. And maybe we never will, but it's worth doing research.
Exactly. We don't want to limit, our scientific endeavors, and that's counter to our philosophy as a country and, globally. But we want to do it responsibly, and I think other countries would participate in that.